Ever wonder if that constant need to win actually shows strength, or if it's just a flimsy mask hiding something deeper, maybe even weakness? Today, we're going to unpack the radical ideas of Friedrich Nietzsche, that wild philosopher who dared to say that arguing is often just a refuge for the weak. By the time we're done, you might just see your interactions in a whole new light. Nietzsche, bless his contrarian heart, challenged pretty much everything. He believed real strength wasn't about dominating a conversation or crushing someone with your logic. Nope, it was about having the guts to stand your ground, even in total silence. He thought people who constantly argue are usually trying to fill a void. They lack that solid core of self-assurance. To get this, we've got to understand his whole vibe about human nature and power. So, why do we argue? Is it to prove a point, flex our dominance, or protect our fragile egos? Nietzsche would say, deep down, it's usually about that ego, that need for someone else to validate us. He saw that as a major red flag, a sign of weakness. Truly strong people? They don't need that external validation. They're cool with their own truths, unshaken by everyone else's opinions. Think about his concept of the Übermensch, the overman, from Thus Spoke Zarathustra. This isn't some superhero. It's someone who breaks free from society's chains and lives authentically. And guess what? The Übermensch isn't wasting time on petty arguments. They're too busy focusing on their own self-improvement. Nietzsche believed constant arguers are stuck in resentment, a state of being defined by what you're against, not what you're for. It's a reactive, weak way to live, letting others control your emotions and identity. Now, think back to your last argument. Was it really about the topic, or was there something else lurking underneath? Maybe a need to feel smart, right, or worthy. Nietzsche would say the strongest people are the ones who can spot that impulse and resist it. They reflect instead of reacting. They rise above. He wasn't saying we should be doormats, though. He valued action over words. Strength for him was showing your values through your life, not just talking about them. Real power doesn't need to convince, it embodies. As he put it, the individual has always had to struggle to keep from being overwhelmed by the tribe. Being yourself might be lonely, even scary, but it's worth the price. In our hyper-connected world, this is super relevant. Social media turns every tiny disagreement into a full-blown war. Nietzsche's asking us, what am I trying to achieve here? Is this argument worth my energy, or am I just echoing everyone else? He wants us to build our inner strength instead of tearing others down. But what is inner strength? For Nietzsche, it starts with knowing yourself, your motives, fears, and desires. Without that awareness, we're just puppets, easily manipulated. Inner strength is being grounded, no matter the chaos around you. He also challenged the idea of absolute truth. He thought it was just a human construct. So, if truth is subjective, what's the point of arguing about it? He cared more about your personal truth, your own values and purpose, than some universal truth. This is freeing, but also challenging. It means letting go of the need to be right, embracing uncertainty, and focusing on self-discovery. So, next time you feel that urge to argue, pause. Is this an ego trip or a chance to grow? Nietzsche saw arguments as mirrors reflecting our inner state. What will you see when you look? Let's talk about power dynamics. Nietzsche's will to power wasn't just about survival. It was about thriving, growing, asserting yourself. But true power? It's mastering yourself, not controlling others. Most arguments stem from a misguided attempt to control someone else's perspective. And that, Nietzsche said, often hides an internal void, a lack of self-assurance. People argue because they feel threatened, incomplete, insecure. He hated the herd mentality, where people conform and seek validation through agreement. They argue to fit in, to prove their loyalty, to silence anyone who rocks the boat. For Nietzsche, that was weakness. The Übermensch doesn't need the herd's approval. Look at online debates. They devolve into personal attacks, endless rebuttals. They reveal deep insecurities, the need to be right, to feel superior. Nietzsche wants us to see these moments as distractions from self-improvement. How do we break free? By shifting our focus from external validation to internal growth. Instead of trying to convince others, become a better version of yourself. This takes courage, humility, and the willingness to admit you don't have all the answers.
He wasn't saying we should isolate ourselves. Meaningful relationships are crucial, but they should be about mutual respect and exploring deeper truths, not dominating or belittling. When we approach conversations with curiosity, we create genuine connection. So, what does true strength look like in a disagreement? It's not about winning, it's about transcending. Strong people listen, engage with ideas, and stay grounded. They don't need to prove themselves. Imagine someone criticizes you. Instead of reacting, you pause, reflect, examine your own assumptions, or just let it go. That's strength, self-control. Nietzsche's ideas change how we see conflict. It's not a battle, it's an opportunity for growth. By prioritizing understanding over ego, we create constructive dialogue. Have you ever been in an argument that was more about proving a point than seeking truth? What did that reveal about you? How would your life change if you embraced Nietzsche's philosophy? His teachings are timeless. In our fast-paced world, his call for self-mastery is more relevant than ever. He wants us to step back, examine our motives, and live authentically. To really get Nietzsche, we need to talk about self-overcoming. Life isn't static. It's a constant process of growth, challenge, and transformation. Strength is overcoming not just external obstacles, but internal ones too. Arguments, especially ego-driven ones, distract us from this. His critique of morality is also key. He saw traditional morality as a tool of the weak, born from resentment. These moral systems prioritize meekness over strength. Arguments in this context are attempts by the weak to impose their values on others. How do we engage without arguing? Through dialogue. Unlike arguments which are about winning, dialogues are about understanding. Both parties approach the conversation with humility, seeking common ground. It's not about asserting dominance, it's about exploring ideas together. Nietzsche wasn't against conflict. He was against petty disputes. He wanted us to focus on excellence, authenticity, and living on our own terms. This requires seeing others as fellow travelers, not adversaries. Think about his idea of eternal recurrence. Imagine living your life over and over again. Would you want to spend eternity arguing or doing something more meaningful? This perspective makes us value our time. Instead of arguing, we can create, learn, and connect. He also challenged our relationship with truth. There are no facts, only interpretations. Truth is shaped by perspective. Arguments often assume our perspective is the only valid one. But Nietzsche wants us to embrace the complexity of truth, to see multiple perspectives. This changes how we approach disagreements. We listen without defensiveness, question without hostility, and learn without fear. And finally, he wants us to transcend ourselves, to become more than we are. This is self-overcoming, shedding our fears and egos. Consider the power of silence. It can be a form of strength, a refusal to be drawn into pettiness. It's not submission, it's self-assurance. Next time you're tempted to argue, pause. Is this an opportunity for growth, or just your ego talking? Nietzsche's philosophy is a blueprint for a purposeful life. It's about mastering yourself, not overpowering others. The Übermensch doesn't argue. Their life is their argument. In our noisy world, this is counterintuitive, but he wants us to focus on our own growth. Ask yourself, is this argument worth my energy? Approach disagreements with curiosity, not defensiveness. Embody your values, don't just argue for them. Live authentically and inspire others through your example. Life, for Nietzsche, is a canvas for creating meaning. Arguing is a distraction from that. Embrace the challenges, uncertainties, and everything that happens to you, good and bad. That's amor fati, love of fate. Strength isn't avoiding conflict, it's transforming it. Approach disagreements with wisdom, humility, and a commitment to growth. Turn them into moments of transformation. So, arguing is often a sign of weakness because it distracts us from self-overcoming. True strength is mastering ourselves, living authentically, questioning our assumptions, and focusing on what matters. Next time you're tempted to argue, pause. What are you trying to achieve? How can you use this experience to grow? And so,
Nietzsche's
we arrive at the
philosophy is a
heart
call
of
to
Nietzsche's
rise
message.
above.
The greatest argument you'll ever make isn't shouted from a rooftop, but whispered in the quiet strength of a life well lived. It's in the courage to choose authenticity over applause, the wisdom to listen more than you speak, and the resilience to rise above the noise. If you enjoyed this exploration of Nietzsche's profound insights and want to see more content like this, be sure to hit that like button. Subscribe to the channel and ring that notification bell so you never miss a new perspective. See you in the next one.